Congratulations on the purchase of your new Kenmore sewing machine. You have selected a quality product with well-designed features that'll make your sewing carefree. The needle threader and one-step buttonhole makes this machine a joy to sew with. This special edition tote bag pattern has been developed to enhance your sewing experience. This video will show you how to construct View A from your quick sew tote bag pattern using the most important features of your new Kenmore sewing machine and its accessories. Remove the pattern from the envelope and press the pattern flat as recommended in the pattern instructions. Press the paper pattern without steam. The pattern pieces may be cut directly from large pattern sheets, or the pattern can be traced onto tracing paper. Should you decide to trace all the pattern pieces, be sure to transfer all of the markings. The grain line marks will keep your fabric straight when you lay out each piece. Each of the markings is important for cutting out the fabric as well as the placement of the handles. To cut out the pattern pieces, use either paper scissors or a rotary cutter and mat. A quilting ruler will keep the lines perfectly straight when cutting with a rotary cutter. If you do not want to cut out the notches in the pattern, nip the edge of the fabric at the notches or mark with a washable marking pen. If you plan to wash your tote bag after it's finished, pre-shrink the fabric before cutting. Press the fabric when dry. If you have chosen a tapestry or dry clean only fabric, steam press the fabric. With the right sides together, refold the fabric as shown on your pattern instruction sheet. Secure the pattern pieces, pinning through all the layers if cutting the fabric with scissors. When cutting the fabric with a rotary cutter and mat, hold the fabric in place with either weights or tins. Your sewing machine comes with an excellent selection of accessory feet. The zigzag foot is attached to the foot holder on the sewing machine. You'll be using this foot to sew the tote bag together. The wide base of this flat foot holds the fabric securely in place. The zipper foot will be used to insert the zipper in the side panel pocket. The shape of the foot permits the needle to sew closer to the zipper teeth. The automatic buttonhole foot completes each and every buttonhole precisely with easy setup. The satin stitch foot is the correct foot to sew the dense zigzag stitches or the decorative stitches. When you compare the underside of the zigzag foot to the underside of the satin stitch foot, you will notice that the satin stitch foot has a groove that permits the decorative stitch to sew smoothly without interruption. To thread a sewing machine, you must first wind a bobbin. Always use high-quality sewing thread made of strong fibers. Pull up the spool pin on the top of the machine to its highest position. Place the thread on the spool pin with the thread winding off from the back. Follow the thread path on the top of the machine to wind the bobbin. Insert the thread through the hole in the end of the bobbin, threading from the inside to the outside. Place the bobbin onto the bobbin winder spindle. Gently push the bobbin winder spindle to the right. Pull out the hand wheel to release the clutch. Hold the loose end of the thread upward and press down on the foot pedal. When the thread has been wound around the bobbin several times, stop and cut the excess thread. Press down on the foot pedal until the bobbin is completely wound. Do not wind the bobbin too fast. Winding thread onto the bobbin at a high speed can cause the thread to stretch when sewing. The bobbin winder will stop when full. Cut the thread close to the bobbin, pull the bobbin winder spindle back to its original position, and push in the hand wheel. To place the bobbin in the bobbin holder, lift the presser foot lifter. Turn the hand wheel towards you until the needle is at its highest position. Pull the extension table to the left to remove it from the sewing machine. Pull down the embossed area on the shuttle cover to access the bobbin. To remove the bobbin case from the shuttle, pull open the bobbin case latch, pull the bobbin case straight out of the shuttle, remove the bobbin that is already in the bobbin case. Place the newly wound bobbin into the bobbin case, making sure that the threads feed clockwise. Draw the thread through the slot and continue drawing the thread under the tension spring through the opening. Leave a long thread tail. Holding the latch open, position the bobbin case into the shuttle and release the latch. The metal finger on the bobbin case should fit snugly into the groove in the shuttle race cover. The case should fit securely and not move around. When you thread the sewing machine, always raise the presser foot lifter to open the tension discs. This step will ensure that the thread will slide through the tension guides. Follow the thread guide path marked on top and front of the sewing machine. Draw the thread around the upper thread guide. Hold the thread near the spool. Draw the end of the thread around the check spring holder. Continue drawing the thread up from right to left over the take-up lever and through the eye of the take-up lever. Finally, slide the thread behind the left needle bar thread guide. Adjustments are required depending the weight of the chosen fabric. The heavier the fabric, the longer the stitch length. Stitch length could vary between 2 and 3. Heavier fabrics require a larger size needle. When changing the needle, undo the needle clamp screw and remove the needle. Select the size 14 needle from the needle package in your accessory kit. Place the flat side of the needle towards the back of the machine. The needle will only fit one way. Push the needle up as far as it'll go, tighten the needle clamp screw, give the needle screw just a slight turn using the accessory screwdriver. To ensure the needle is in its correct position for the needle threader, raise the presser foot, turn the hand wheel towards you, and raise the needle to its highest position. Pull down the needle threader knob to its lowest position. Turn the knob towards the needle. The small hook on the needle threader will be inserted through the eye of the needle. Bring the thread around the guide to the left, under the guide, and then under the hook in the needle eye. Turn the knob away from you, gently drawing the thread loop through the eye of the needle. Raise the needle thread knob slowly to draw the thread loop up. To raise the bobbin thread, turn the hand wheel forward one complete revolution until the take-up lever is in its highest position. Hold the bobbin thread loop and pull upward. Bring the needle thread under the foot, placing the needle and the bobbin thread to the back of the machine. Do not use sharp objects to draw the thread under the foot. The needle plate could be scratched. Press the lever on the back of the foot holder to release and remove the zigzag foot. Position the zipper foot under the foot holder so the pin on the foot lies under the groove on the holder. Lower the presser foot to lock the foot in place. To begin sewing the tote bag, the pockets must first be prepared. View A tote bag has 2 different pocket constructions, a zippered pocket as well as a plain pocket. To construct the zipper pocket, pattern pieces 4 and 5 are required. Pin the right side of the zipper to the right side of the pocket extension piece 5. The edges of the zipper should be even with the edge of the fabric, and the ends of the zipper should extend beyond the end of the fabric. Turn the stitch pattern selection dial to select stitch pattern number 1, and then slide the stitch width lever to a setting of 5. This straight stitch is now in the center needle position. If you wish to select stitch pattern number 2, the left needle position, slide the stitch width lever to a setting of 0. Stitch pattern number 2 does not appear on the pattern selection dial. For most of your sewing needs, the thread tension dial on the front of your Kenmore sewing machine should be at a setting of 4. This dial adjusts the needle thread tension. It can be turned higher if the number tension is too loose, or turned to a lower number if the needle thread tension is too tight. Position the zipper under the zipper foot with the left edge of the foot positioned snugly against the zipper tape. Sew a few stitches, press the reverse lever to secure the stitches. Continue sewing the zipper to the fabric extension, reversing at the end of the seam. Cut the thread with a thread cutter, positioned on the left side of the face cover. Pin the remaining side of the zipper to the right side of the pocket piece number 4, keeping the edges of the pocket even, sew the second side of the pocket to the zipper, following the same steps. Fold the pocket pieces away from the zipper and press. To complete the top edge of the pocket, fold under 1/4 inch or 6 mm to the wrong side and press. Remove the zipper foot from the foot holder and attach the satin stitch foot. Turn the stitch pattern dial to stitch number 4. Change the stitch width lever to a setting of 4.5. Slide the stitch length lever to the stretch stitch arrow highlighted in gold to select the decorative stitch. The middle position is used for most fabrics. If the fabric pattern does not form properly when tested on your fabric sample, select the L position to lengthen the stitch or select the S position to shorten the stitch. The forward stitches must line up over the top of the reverse motion stitches. Position the pocket under the foot with the edge of the satin stitch foot running along the seam created when the zipper was sewn to the pocket piece. Carefully and slowly sew the decorative stitch. Pin the wrong side of the pocket to the right side of the bag using the placement marks. To prepare the machine for attaching the pocket to the side of the tote bag, select stitch pattern number 1. Place the side of the bag under the presser foot so that the inside of the edge of the right side of the satin stitch foot runs along the edge of the pocket. Sew the pocket to the side of the bag, sew slowly over the zipper. If you have used a separating zipper with large teeth, manually turn the handwheel when sewing over the zipper. As you approach the corner of the pocket, stop with the needle down. Lift the presser foot, pivot the fabric, and continue sewing the remaining 3 sides of the pocket. Trim away the ends of the zipper even with the pocket sides. Cut the webbing into 2 39-inch or 100-centimeter long pieces. Pin the handles to the right side of each side of the bag at the placement marks, covering the edges of the pockets. To attach the handles to the tote bag, select straight stitch pattern number 1. Change the stitch length to a setting of 2.5 and the stitch width to a setting of 5. Position the handle under the presser foot with the right edge of the handle under the presser foot. Sew the first side of the handle to the bag, continue pivoting at each corner until all 4 sides are completed. To provide extra strength to the handles, sew diagonal crosses on the handles. Fold under 1/4 inch or 6 millimeters to the wrong side along both of the long edges of the fabric and press. Pin the wrong side of the contrasting bottom of the bag to the right side of the bag, matching the markings at the side seams. With the same stitch length, sew the layers together close to the folded edge. To further secure contrast fabric, sew channel lines. Use either a water-soluble marking pen or a chalk marker to draw the lines for top stitching. The first line should be drawn 1 3/8 inch or 3.5 centimeters from the top edge. Turn the bag and draw 3 more lines from the edge of the bag, 1 3/8 inch or 3.5 centimeters apart. Sew the same direction for each of the marked lines. This will keep the fabric from twisting. Fold the bag in half with right sides together. Pin the sides together matching the markings. Check that the edges of the contrast bottom pieces match. Position the edge of the bag under the zigzag foot with a 1/4 inch or 6 millimeter seam allowance. Sew the edges together with a straight stitch, reversing at each end. To ensure that the edges of the bag do not fray with constant use, overcast the edges. Turn the stitch pattern selection dial to a stitch number 3. Slide the stitch width lever to a setting of 5 to achieve the widest stitch width available. Also, slide the stitch length lever to a setting of 3. Remove the zigzag foot and attach the satin stitch foot so that you can see the edge of the fabric. Position the edge of the bag under the satin stitch foot with the inside of the right edge of the foot aligned with the fabric. Use an overcast stitch on both sides of the bag, reversing them at the beginning and the end of the seam. Once the sides of the bag have been overcast, press them to the side. To keep the top bag from unraveling, overcast the edge. Fold the top edge of the bag to the wrong side along the fold line and press in place. To square off the bottom of the bag, fold each corner, right sides together, matching the marked stitching lines. The bag will sit squarely when filled with items and not fall over. Add strength to the closure with an iron-on interfacing. This step will keep the buttonhole from becoming distorted over time. Fuse the iron-on interfacing to the wrong side of one of the tab closure pieces, following the manufacturer's instructions. Pin the tabs with the right sides together. Sew the sides together with a 1/4 inch or 6 millimeter seam allowance with a straight stitch. To keep the pointed edges from unraveling, reduce the stitch length when sewing the 2 corners and the point of the closure. Cut diagonally across the 3 pointed ends of the tab. Turn the closure tab right side out and press. Top stitch close to the edge of the tab with a straight stitch and overcast the raw edges together. To make a buttonhole, first turn the pattern selection dial to buttonhole stitch. Slide the stitch length lever to the midpoint of the buttonhole diagram. Change the stitch width lever to a setting of 4.5. Pull open the button holder, place the button into the holder. The holder takes up to 1 inch or 2.5 centimeter buttons. If the button has a shank, line up the shank with a groove in the holder. You can also insert the button upside down. To hold the button in place, push the holder forward snugly against the button. Some buttons have a rounded top. To allow enough space for the button to fit through the buttonhole opening, pull back on the holder, just a bit. To remove the attached presser foot, press the lever on the back of the foot holder. Position the buttonhole foot under the foot holder. Lower the presser bar, catching the pin on the foot with a groove on the presser bar. Place a scrap of fabric under the buttonhole foot opening. Turn the hand wheel towards you until the needle drops in and out of the fabric. Gently pull the fabric aside, drawing the needle thread through the opening of the foot. After each buttonhole, turn the pattern selection dial to the right and then back onto the buttonhole stitch pattern to reset the buttonhole stitch pattern. Press down the foot pedal to start sewing the buttonhole. As you can see, the bottom bar tack is sewn first, then the left side. The second bar tack is sewn, and finally, the right side of the buttonhole is sewn. To lock the buttonhole stitches by machine, turn the pattern selection dial to stitch pattern number 1 and change the stitch length to a setting of 0. Press down on the foot pedal, taking 4 or 5 stitches in place. Remove the tab closure from the machine. Remember to reset between each buttonhole and return the levers to the previous buttonhole settings. Clip the threads. Be careful not to cut the knot sewn on the underside of the tab. A small dab of seam sealant along the back of the buttonhole may be applied to secure the stitches. To open the buttonhole, cut a hole in the buttonhole using either a buttonhole chisel with a cutting mat or a block of wood, or place a pin at one end of the buttonhole. Then cut open the buttonhole with scissors or a seam ripper, as illustrated in your owner's manual. Center the tab closure right sides together on the back side of the bag. Match the raw edges of the bag with the raw edges of the tab closure. Remove the buttonhole foot and attach the zigzag foot. To attach the closure, select the stitch pattern number 1. And change the stitch length of a setting of 3. Stitch close to the edge of the bag. To decoratively sew the top edge of the bag, select stitch pattern number 4. Slide the stitch length lever to the stretch stitch arrow. Continue the decorative look on the tote bag. Thread the machine with the contrasting color previously selected. To make it easier, sew in a circle. Remove the extension table from the machine. This technique is referred to free arm sewing. Fold the top edge of the bag to the wrong side along the fold line and pin in place. Position the bag under the presser foot with a fold on the 3/4 inch or 20 mm needle plate guideline. Lower the presser foot. Once again, sew at a reduced speed to ensure the best stitch quality. As you approach the first side seam, stop. Press down the fabric on both sides of the seam. Start sewing once again. This will keep the fabric flat and the stitches from becoming distorted. Pull the thread to the underside of the fabric and tie off. To secure the closure tab to the bag, select stitch pattern number 1. Slide the stitch length lever to a setting of 2 and the stitch width lever to a setting of 5. Sew a rectangle through all layers of the bag and closure. Finally, sew a button onto the front of the bag. The button may be sewn onto the bag by hand or with the Kenmore sewing machine. First, drop the feed dogs. Since the extension table is already removed, just open the shuttle cover. Move the feed dog lever into the right position. Move the stitch length lever to a setting of 0, which isn't really necessary since the feed dogs have been dropped. This is just a precaution. Select stitch pattern number 3. Slide the stitch width lever to a setting of 4.5. You may need to vary the stitch width depending upon the distance between the 2 holes in the button. Either use tape or dab a bit of fabric glue to hold the button in place. Position the button under the satin stitch foot. so that the needle will drop into the center of the holes in the button. Slowly turn the hand wheel towards you, testing that the needle drops into each of the holes without hitting the button. If the needle clears the button, press the foot pedal and sew several stitches. To lock the stitches in place, turn the stitch pattern selection dial to stitch number 1 and slide the stitch width lever to a setting of 0, the left needle position. Then sew a few stitches in place. Lift the presser bar, remove the bag from the machine leaving long thread tails. Pull the needle thread to the inside of the bag and clip the threads. To raise the feed dogs, open the shuttle cover. Move the feed dog lever back to the left position. Turn the hand wheel towards you 1 complete revolution to raise the feed dogs. Finally, close the shuttle cover and attach the extension table. Your machine is ready to sew. All of the finishing details are now completed.